Bom dia, pessoal. Estamos aqui na Clam hoje fazendo uma entrevista com nossos amigos da NatureMetrics. Essa é a Sophia que está aqui comigo e nós vamos conversar um pouquinho hoje sobre DNA ambiental, sobre uma série de coisas e sobre a parceria que a Clam estabeleceu com a NatureMetrics recentemente. Como a NatureMetrics é uma empresa inglesa, nós entendemos que é melhor que a entrevista seja feita em inglês. Hello, Sophia. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me today.
All right. Can you please tell something for us about yourself and about NatureMetrics, please?
Sure. So I'm a biologist by training. I got a master's in ecology, evolution, and conservation biology. So I started my career in the field doing academic surveys, primarily around primates. That was my passion back in the day. But then eventually I switched over, transitioned into more of the business and nature side of things, looking with large companies, international footprints, thinking about their impacts on biodiversity. So I started out doing environmental impact assessments, critical habitat assessments, and through my career, I've shifted to now working more at the strategy level with big companies, thinking about what is their commitments to nature, to climate, and how can I work with sites to actually think about their impact on the ground, negative to positive, because many of these companies have a net positive impact commitment. So we think more of the strategy level. And so I've now been working for a year with NatureMetrics on their nature strategy team as a principal nature strategist. And NatureMetrics is a really interesting company. We are a nature tech company, been around for 10 years now, which is really amazing to see the growth of this company. I became aware of the company years before when I was working with ERM, and they had just started fresh two years into becoming a company. And they were doing a beautiful survey detecting threatened species in Paraguay. And at the time, I was a biodiversity consultant for ERM. And it really got me excited to think about, wow, the scale that we can survey with environmental eDNA, because the company started as an environmental eDNA company. At this point in time, we are a digital solutions company. We offer remote sensing services, environmental DNA, as well as bioacoustics. But our founder, Kat Bruce, back in the day, she was part of academia, and she saw this really great opportunity. Why aren't companies using environmental DNA? Because you can take a small sample and detect millions of species. And how impactful is that information when biodiversity is so hard to detect in some places, and you can spend hours, months in the fields and not get to the same amount of information. So we started back then 10 years ago, and now we've expanded, and it's been really amazing to see the advancements and the solutions that we can now provide to our clients. And also, you've already said we're based in United Kingdom, but we do have a global footprint, working in over 100 companies with over 100 countries with over 600 companies.
Okay, so I'm very happy to have you here, and we are here at Clam very optimistic about our new partnership and very excited as well. So starting a few questions that we prepared for you. Could you tell me, please, the NatureMetrics' current view on the use of eDNA in biodiversity monitoring and the environmental licensing, please?
Yeah. So environmental DNA is a really powerful solution to detect millions of species from a water sample. You take a liter of water and you can detect millions of species, soil samples, sediment samples. And now we have new technology that using swab samples, you swab your vegetation and you can detect the birds and the bats in the area. It's really, really powerful. And so this sort of monitoring solutions can be used in the beginning, an early stage project that's screening to detect what is in the area, but in multiple stages through the construction for monitoring, operations, closure, depending on what sort of projects we're talking about, even, it crosses different sectors. So agriculture, mining, oil and gas, you name it. It depends on the solution. We really, we're providing these solutions to better detect what is there. And I think eDNA really has really strong opportunities in the sense when you're doing the early screening to understand what is there, what are those threatened species, invasive species, really high value species to communities, indigenous peoples. And then on the other side of things, we're now creating these really novel solutions to measure ecosystem condition. More and more with international markets, we see a demand for quantifying the ecosystem condition. And how do you do that? That's been so difficult for so long. But when you look at eDNA, for the longest time, people have only saw eDNA as, oh, it's just a list of species. That's all you can determine is presence and absence. But really what we have is this valuable data set of composition that can tell you the integrity of that ecosystem. You look at, and you compare this to these pristine ecosystems, whether it be a forest, whether it be grasslands, whether it be riparian buffers. By collecting these samples, we can evaluate the level of degradation, or on the opposite, if you're trying to restore this ecosystem, you can see whether it be bioindicators or trying to assess that diversity within the composition. So it's a really powerful tool, and more we're seeing governments and companies asking NatureMetrics to come in and support them to complement studies that are going on in the field to improve their baselines. A lot of the times we see, the requirements from EIAs not having a sufficient field presence on the ground, so we can use our data to supplement this. And there's a powerful push and direction from governments and international markets to start integrating this powerful data.
Well, that's very interesting. And what could you tell us about the reduction of the field work? Because if we can reduce the field work using this kind of new technology, we can expose our teams less to the hazards of the field work, and it's very important for our clients. So would you please elaborate this subject a little bit for us?
Yeah, and I think that's a really strong and really valid point, especially when you have clients that are so sensitive to the risk that you're putting your people out in the field. There is like high risk snake bites, like you name it. Some of us love being out in the field, and there's just like this amazing like excitement that you get in the field, but there is incredible risks. And with eDNA, we offer to reduce that risk because, we can, with eDNA, you can detect species, up to 3 times more species. But also an important fact is, when you're doing these traditional monitoring surveys, you may be out in the field for months or maybe just weeks, but we can reduce that to days and detect that many species. So it's a really powerful tool in the sense of reducing the risk to your clients as well as to your people.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And changing the subject a little bit, but focusing still in eDNA, how about we talk a little bit on a subject related to the reporting? Because a lot of companies that work here in Brazil have their headquarters abroad. So they need to send data for their headquarters in a way that the guys in the other countries can understand the data. So I think eDNA could be, and the results of the eDNA study can be a very interesting way to report data from the sites to the headquarters in a way that the headquarters can understand the environmental measures well, and they can report this information for the stakeholders like the banks and the people that provide money for the operations. Is this an advantage to use eDNA here in Brazil and have the information reported to abroad to the people that provide money for the operations here in Brazil? It is a good way to use the information?
Definitely. eDNA is really informative and an easy way to translate site level information up to corporates, because a lot of nowadays we're seeing more and more markets, especially around like the task force for nature related financial disclosures. Banks are asking for these metrics and, you know, understanding what comes out of the field. A lot of times it's biomass or density, and how do you translate that into something that is easily interpreted for somebody at the bank level or financial institution or corporate level? What does that mean to them? So with eDNA, we can really pull out what are those key threatened species, reporting numbers, presence, but also, again, when we're talking about ecosystem condition, this is, again, that metric that a lot of TNFD, for example, has an ecosystem condition metric. And so this supports that by saying, okay, we, NatureMetrics, are using a lot of our analysis to actually provide that number and that indices for you. Back in the day, we used to provide PDF reports of just like lists of species. And yes, with, for example, environmental impact assessments, you do have lists of species, but that information is not useful to financial institutions. So translating those metrics is what we have now on our dashboards. We're providing that to our clients because the interpretation and the communication of data is so important and drives the impact. And we really have to understand our audience. So yes, I think the data that we provide in terms of eDNA nowadays is exactly what TNFD and those financial institutions are asking for, and really like facilitates our clients' work.
So I'm not following the list of questions that we agreed before, but as we are talking, things are coming to my head, and I'm starting to think what is the best subject for us to talk about. But it came to my head a new question. This kind of eDNA way of measure biodiversity, it's helpful only for the big companies that use and need to report these things to the market, like Vale, like Anglo American or other big companies, or the junior mining companies can have advantage to using this kind of this kind of tool. It's good for big companies, or junior mining companies can use it as well?
No, definitely junior mining companies can use it. You know, when we think about starting with a project, the first question we want to ask is, what decision is trying to be asked? What are they asking? And so that's when we first think about, okay, environmental eDNA, how can we use it and apply it to the situation? And I think, you know, yes, more commonly, some of our first clients were these bigger mining companies, but to say it's only excluded to the large players is not fair, because it's a way of figuring out a solution. And by a junior mining company using some of these solutions, we're giving them access to the markets, giving them access to the financial institutions, those big players that may fund them. You know, they're working in the same biome, same ecosystem, same challenges that a larger mining company would have. So another way that you can think about it is also it may open up opportunities for them, because we know that within Brazil, there are strict regulations around impacting species and ecosystems. And this may also reveal that, you know, there isn't a threatened species in the area that can open up a mineral license. It can all be applied in the same way, whether you're a junior player or a big player in the market.
And how about different markets, like the infrastructure market and power line transmission markets, and some kind of electricity generation markets like the hydroelectrical and fossil fuel power industries and things like that. And this tool, eDNA, works well in the mining sector and in the energy sector and infrastructure as well, or only in the mining sector?
No, we cross many sectors. In NatureMetrics, at our headquarters, we have different sector leads that cross mining, oil and gas, agriculture, infrastructure. If we're thinking about infrastructure, again, it's asking that right question. When is the impact going to happen, and what is the data that you need to understand? So specifically for infrastructure, we would want it to do early in the project planning, in the design, because that's when you can have the best mitigation strategies in place. And that really is at the core of why we're doing this, because we want to reduce the impact on biodiversity and nature as much as possible. So if we can, with infrastructure, get in there early, take eDNA samples to understand what is there, first of all. Are there threat species? And where are those, for example, if it's a bird that breeds at a specific time, maybe you shift construction at a specific time, or there's really high conservation value areas, maybe you redesign your transmission line or your road to avoid these areas. And that is what we can drive here. And so there's very specific windows, I think, for different sectors that will drive those solutions. But it's definitely a cross-sectoral solution that we're providing here, which is really exciting. And it keeps, the things that come across my desk are so interesting because they're so diverse. And to really think about how we can use our solutions to better help their strategies on the ground is really exciting.
All right. And how about you tell us a little bit about eDNA in caves? There's a special way of use eDNA in caves, and how our clients can benefit of the use of eDNA in cave environments.
Yeah, and I think that question specifically is very important to Brazil because there is such strict legislation around the protection of caves because of their distinct, unique ecosystem and value for water. But in this case, I think eDNA is really valuable, and it goes back to our earlier question about not only safety and risk, but, cave environments can be really big or they can be really small. So access, for one thing, is an issue. But then also in these cave systems, you can have the smallest little species, or you can have colonies of bats. And we're thinking about colonies of bats, we want to maybe reduce the invasiveness of going out and trying to monitor solutions. But also, like if we go out, so we have two scenarios that we can use for our eDNA. One is the swab kit. So you would take almost kind of like a COVID test. You take a swab against the wall of the cave, take multiple samples to detect what species have shed their eDNA, their hair, their skin, their cellular cells on the walls, and you can detect those very endemic species, because we know up in the north in Pará State, there's projects that I'm working on where the cave systems are so unique and endemic, and you can't find these little invertebrate species anywhere else. So by using eDNA, we can really reveal the breadth of diversity that is in these caves and the relevancy for if it is a unique cave that supports something that is nowhere else. We can also use soil samples depending on the substrate, but then you take, a small soil sample to detect what species are there. And it really opens up an opportunity to have better knowledge of your cave systems here in Brazil. I think it's a really interesting opportunity.
All right, thank you. So, as we have a limited time, it's time for your final considerations. So if you want to give us a final message, it's time for you to do that.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here to kick off this partnership. You know, with Clam, I think it's going to be really invaluable to us because obviously we're based in the United Kingdom and our solutions, you know, we have eDNA remote sensing and bioacoustics, and those solutions are fit for certain purposes, but I think there's going to be a real value for us coming together in a partnership to better strategize different solutions. You know, we can go out into the field, collect eDNA and identify threatened species, but we're still going to need to understand the population of that species, and we're still going to need traditional monitoring. So I think with this partnership, we can collaborate together rather than like, you know, a lot of the times I see, whether it's in private industry, in NGOs, there's always a competition. But we can recognize that we come with different sides of the coin and really come together and come to our clients with better solutions and better mitigation strategies. And I want to end, I think, with one fact that at this moment in time, NatureMetrics, we're really proud of this, is that we've already sampled 10% of the Earth. And Brazil has 6 biomes. 6 biomes, correct?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, 6 biomes. So what if we could sample 30% of Brazil and covering these biomes? To me, it would be so exciting and like really something that I would love to see happen. So I'm hoping that with this partnership with your experts that are so knowledgeable about Brazil, this is the kind of partnership that will get us to that ambition.